Welcome to the Dice Tower, a series of video reviews about board and card games. Here are your hosts, Tom Vasel and Sam Healey.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel.
Zee Garcia, hello.
Sam Healey, welcome.
Today we're taking a look at Gloomhaven, which seems like it's a light box, but that's because it's empty. It seems like each year there is a huge game that has a lot of hype. Last year was Scythe. Mm-hmm. This year, definitely Gloomhaven.
Oh, yes.
This game had a ton of hype on Kickstarter, but we kind of went into it, all of us, not knowing a lot about it. Mm-hmm. I deliberately don't find out much about Kickstarters. So this is a first impression. I'm doing another video where you can see what I think about the components. We're going to just talk about gameplay. These guys have played 1.5 missions, and I've played a little bit more than that. And we're going to do a full review later on because this game has a lot going on in it. And we might even do second impressions, third impressions, because, well, depends how far we get in the game.
Because we're assuming it will evolve, too.
Right, so I'm going to move this out of the way.
Just right here would be fine.
Actually, that is good.
That's a better place.
So, first of all, this is a legacy-style game in which or a campaign game, I guess. But it is legacy because there are stickers that you will put on things that will permanently change them. Now, the stickers on the board don't really matter that much, but there's stickers that will show up on cards later on. Mm-hmm. And they did make it so I think there's some replayability where the cards, instead of ripping cards up, you're just taking them out of the game. So I'm like keeping them in a rubber band. They can always go back in after you're done with them, and so on and so forth. Although you would know the storyline. But there's a lot of game here.
There sure seems to be a lot of game here. I mean, like you said, we've gone through just really a fairly small part of it in the scope of things. I feel anyway, like I'm barely starting to scratch the surface, really, but I've played a good amount of time.
Yeah.
You know, any other game, I'd be like, yeah, I know how this works now. I got it. In this game, I'm like, wow. I'm just looking off in the horizon thinking, how much game is in this box, you know? And that's very exciting, very promising. I like that a lot. And like you said, the legacy idea, I like that it's a part of this game, but I almost hesitate to say Gloomhaven a legacy game.
Yeah, it's closer to like a campaign game like Descent and all that stuff.
Yes. And it uses concepts that have evolved out of this whole legacy idea, but that's not it. It doesn't just do that thing, you know?
Well, let's talk about the world of Gloomhaven first. This is not Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder. This is its own universe. What do you think about the fantasy setting here?
I guess there isn't your cookie-cutter races and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, you don't have a dwarf and an elf and a human and a human magician and all this kind of stuff. You have these weird races that are kind of new. I don't know if you say fresh because I mean you can at least I could see kind of the basis, like the character I was playing looks like he could be a takeoff of a minotaur or something like that, mm-hmm. But it's not the same. It is different, so they did put some work into it, and I like that. I just don't know how much I like it at this point.
Whereas I am not a fan of fantasy. Normally, I don't really care for it, especially elves and dwarves and all that stuff. And so this appeals to me much more because it isn't something that I'm bringing that bias to, unfortunately. I just don't care for that stuff. And so this, I feel like I can take a look at it with fresh eyes. You know, I'm not bringing anything to the equation. And whereas the concept of how original the game's characters are or its world is certainly debatable, I like this quite a bit. I like this theme. It's fantasy, yeah, but it's different also.
Yeah, I really like it. It feels like a breath of fresh air just to have different things. And also, the only thing is sometimes I'm sitting there with these new character classes trying to wrap my head around what this character class is. You know, I know there's all these terminologies that people use, like tank and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I guess you could classify them, but I'm like, is this guy a healer or is this guy someone who's, what kind of character? And you figure that out as the game goes through. So with that being said, there are two I think, fairly unique mechanisms in this game. Okay, first one is the cards that you play.
Right.
You're going to be playing the cards. One, you're playing... By the way, we're not going through a description of how to play. There's already some how-to-play videos on the internet, and we might do that in our full review. But Paul Grogan has done a great job of explaining how to play, so we're just going to be talking about different factors of the game. But there are cards that you have, a unique deck for each character, like extremely unique. And you can play
Right.
you're playing the top of one card, the bottom of the other. And you can always play the top as a 2 attack or the bottom as a 2 move. But they also have a variety of other things. Sometimes when you play a card, you lose it. And these cards are the meat of the game. They
Right.
really are. But they're a built-in timing system. Because you're slowly losing them, or quickly losing them.
Yeah.
You know, the
Well,
cards.
if you do really, really strong things, the game simulates a cooldown effect by simply just losing. You lose it, and never cools down. It goes away. And so I like that a lot. And on top of that, the timing of your turn. If you do something tough, it's slow. If you do something quick, the cards have a number which simulates you do so quickly, meaning before the other players. Mm-hmm. And that is...
Oh, you like that initiative
There's
thing?
another level to that, on top of it. But yeah, this concept of the top of one card, the bottom of another, it's a very Euro game mechanism, through and through. And then they put it on attacking and, blast of magic and running, and they put all of that on top of it, which really goes well hand in hand,
Yeah.
So I really...
Yes.
I don't need to add anything to it. So
No, I really like the concept, but this does bring something into play I think we need to talk about. The Gloomhaven itself, it's a huge box, and the rules explanation is fairly long. I don't think the game is that complicated to play, to figure out what to do, to move and attack, and the concepts are pretty simple. But I do think it's a difficult game to grok, to figure out exactly what to do. I think the difficulty of this game, at least in the beginning, is a lot harder than we thought. It's essentially a multiplayer puzzle that you are figuring out together as you go through and hack and slash. And there's luck in the game and all that. We'll get to more about that in a minute. But you need to almost do a test run with your character because you need to know how your character works.
Right. Yeah, the more you know that deck of cards we were just talking about, the better you'll be able to play. And it is puzzly. There is a learning curve there, and not rules-wise, like you're saying. How to play that person, how to play that character. That's what you're learning how to do well. What am I good at? How do I do it? I know this one card has got to be coming up, or whatever, or I can save it. You have all your cards, right? I can save this one thing and do it really when I need to because I know it works this way. That learning the person, And that's cool, because it makes me think of just the depth that's here is not readily apparent. And that's not complex, that's not rules-heavy depth. That's tactical depth. I like that.
yeah, I guess the deck of cards is the one thing that I'm really kind of apprehensive about right now, because I usually like that kind of thing. I usually like how everybody has their own decks, everybody has their own variable powers and all that kind of stuff. I'm really usually completely on board with that. But having that connected to also this puzzly timing mechanism that's out there, not so sure I'm on board with that right now. Maybe it's because I didn't rock it the right way my first time through the game. Maybe I just need to play it some more so that I can better understand how I can be more efficient using those cards. But it really felt like, and I think you were feeling this a little bit, or actually a lot, where you were just running out of things you could do.
Right.
Because
well, the problem I had,
the mission was taking longer than it should have,
Right.
or what have you, and we were just like, one card, rest. One card, rest. Okay, now I can't do anything else. And it's toward the end of the mission, but not so sure if I'm liking that timing puzzle.
Well, that's like a different issue I have with that deck of cards with the character I was playing, and maybe I played it wrong, right? The idea of top of one card, bottom of another, the fastest one is your speed. I like that because that's tactical, highly tactical, and I like tactical games. What Sam's talking about is the cards that say, when you use this power, it's so good, we're going to take it away from you, this card. That, I guess they expect you to do it later in a mission. You know, when you're about to wrap it up, you can be like, well, now I'll come the big guns now. Mm-hmm. Because if you do it too early, you will run out of cards. There is no, it almost seems like there should be, but there is no, you used, every time you use one of these big time guns, you get some generic half-hearted card that fills in that spot in the deck. And you don't have to rest every other turn because you're holding 3 cards now. And so you do a couple things. Okay, I'm skipping a turn because I have to take these cards back. And every time you do rest and take cards back, one's got to get cycled out anyway. And so that puzzle of figuring out not to use the really good cards, yeah, that's like another level on top of that.
Right. I think mainly, using those big cards and having them exit your deck, I don't think that's really the problem that I'm having. It's more when you rest, you also lose a card. Mm-hmm. So not only are you losing those big dogs if you use them, you're also losing one of your small little dinky cards whenever you rest. And that's where the disconnect is for me. It just seems like they're punishing you for doing what your character is supposed to do.
Right.
And again, this is first impressions. I've only played it once, but I'm curious to see if this is going to flesh out once I get more comfortable using the deck of that character.
So tying this into the difficulty of the game, I highly recommend, if you play this game, to play on the easiest level. Don't even play on normal. Normal is stinking hard. I don't even know what they're talking about playing on a harder level than that. And I really wish, I think this game almost misses the mark. I almost wish the first 1 or 2 scenarios would almost be just have everyone fall over, in a sense. Make them easy to kind of get the grips of the system. As it was, we played through and Zee died in turn 1. So we kind of restarted and went back. And it was, it was a learning experience. And
well,
it didn't happen
again. It was a tough game, though. I mean, you look around the board. I was playing a guy who was small. And I figured, okay, I'm the weenie. I need to hide. My guy has 6 hit points. But then I look around the table, and the big guy around the table has 8. So I'm like, hold on. I guess I don't have to hide. So I run out there, take out a guy or 2, and I get hit. Boom, in the face, 3 hits. Boom, another person, another 3. I'm dead. I'm like, what just happened?
Well, we did learn that we had missed the rule where you could discard a card to get rid of damage. Although that would have been hurtful in the long run, right? Because you're losing a card.
But it's a punishing game, for sure. It's a game that, again, is going to reward you enjoying the tactics of acting, reacting, figuring that puzzle out, which speaks very well to me.
But I am looking forward to getting to level 2. Right. A lot. Yeah. I just want to have some better stuff. Now, that being said, again, the other mechanism of the game is these hit decks. There's no dice in the game. Right. Instead, you flip over the top card of a deck, which is the same for everybody. But as the game progresses, you're going to be able to modify that. And I'm really pumped. I really want to modify my deck.
Right.
I really want to have my own special, specific deck that's in there. And I like the idea that when you're blessed, cards get put into that deck. When you're cursed, cards get put into that deck. And it's just a nice way to simulate effects. Right. I thought the effects in this game, the poison and all that stuff, they're easy, they make sense, and I didn't feel like I was constantly like, how does this work again? No, it's pretty straightforward. Mm-hmm.
I like the game with that concept of modifying that deck, because you go through it fairly slowly, and leveling up your character, all of that. It's a game that has a very it's got a far-reaching view. It's a game that is very subtle in its changes from game to game to game to game. It's not static, and it isn't boring, I would say, but it is a game that's going to take its time to develop, to bring you into its world. Whether that's good or bad is debatable, but that's sort of how it felt to me. I don't know if you've noticed that. You played a little more than us, but it's a game that, again, like you say, you can get blessed, but you might not see those blessed cards for a while, It's not, and you don't instantly feel necessarily the repercussions of all of your actions.
Right.
And it's interesting that it's got like a video game RPG feel to it, to me. Open world kind of. You're like leveling up and you tick some box on your character, and then you might see it in an hour. That thing come into play, and that's interesting. It's great at world building, non-generic characters to me. A rich environment, a rich concept, tactically rich. I like all those things. The slow sort of build progression, bring you into the fold sort of thing of it.
What did you guys think about the greater world? Like when you're in a city, you have a city card, you get options, and then the road, you have the options, and the fact that the things that we do will affect the world in general. What did you think of that?
That's kind of more of the role-playing aspect to it that's entering into the board game realm here, and I enjoyed it. How we were in the certain, a tavern or something like that, and we see these people. What do we do to those people?
Right.
And that has an effect later on to, our reputation or what have you, raises or lowers based upon what we do in the game. I enjoy that kind of thing. I think it would be cooler if more games tried to do that type of thing.
Right. It would require that it be a campaign-style game.
Correct.
But, yeah.
Yeah, my only sad thing about that is I wish there was more of that in the game. I really love that stuff. It's like, ooh, get to do some cool stuff. All right, now you're going to go through and play through this long mission.
Right.
Yes.
And you mentioned the video game thing, so I think it's legitimate to mention at this point in time that it is possible, I think, for the game you can feel like you are grinding at some points. Because they're like, hey, you can go back and play the same mission again to get experience points. You can go play random missions to get experience points. Yeah, but when you do that, it's that grinding.
You're grinding.
You're like, hey, okay, fight, get experience points. And it's going to take a few missions before we get to level 2. And I think once we get to level 2, I think we'll level up faster. I'm hoping so. And then it'd be curious. I'm curious about the moment we have to retire a character. You have this character, you're like, yes! Oh, retire him? Oh. And then I get a new character. That's great, but I'm back to level 1 again.
Yeah.
But maybe they don't start at level 1. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know how these other characters work.
Right.
And so I'm kind of eager to see that point in the game, but realize there's a lot going into this. Now, we mentioned at the beginning this is kind of like a legacy game, and it definitely is.
Yeah.
So we compare it to other legacy games. The first time I played Pandemic Legacy, I was hooked.
Mm-hmm.
I was ready to go, but I already knew the game. I didn't know this game. So the only game I can compare this to is Seafall, where I didn't know Seafall going in to playing this one. And Seafall, if you watch it, our first impressions were okay, and they got worse over time. That might happen with this one too, possibly, but my impression on this one is higher. In fact, it's extremely high. For me, right now, my rating of this is a 9. That's how much I like it. Oof. I'm really pumped. I think this could replace Descent for me. I think the story is extremely cohesive. There are things that would change. Like I wish it was a little easier, but I'm lowering next time we play any dungeons. I'm lowering them all to level 0 until I feel like maybe this is easy. Then I'm increasing it. But until I feel that moment comes, I'm playing on the easiest level because I want to have fun.
You want to have fun. Someone else, if you want to have the challenge, you can easily change that.
Right. And so I'm kind of anxious to see what's going to happen. I want to see the different characters. I'm actually thinking about soloing the 2 characters we're not using in our campaign. Like just running those 2 characters through and see what happens and getting their experience up until suddenly they come in and like, hey guys, we'll take it from here.
I think in many ways the comparison...
I played 30 missions with these guys.
I think in many ways the comparison to Seafall is apt. I'm sure there's
They're
many
very
ways...
different games, I know that.
I'm sure there's many ways in which it's not. Yeah, that's fine. But I think they have similar, so far, from the little bit of experience of it, they seem to have very similar cadences to them. It's a slow progression. They're kind of slow burn campaigns. But the main thing that for me makes me like this much more is, well, 2 things. World building in this is already considerably more interesting than anything I did in Seafall.
Okay.
And I like, mechanically, I think this is much more tactically rich than the things I was engaged in while playing Seafall.
This definitely feels like an Ameritrashy game with Eurogame elements in it, whereas Seafall felt like a Eurogame with Eurogame aspects to it.
No, with American, like, dice chucking for...
That was ultimately meaningless.
Well, actually, it was almost too meaningful at some point. But we don't mean to make this all about Seafall.
Nope.
But what are your initial thoughts about the game rating-wise?
Rating-wise, I'm gonna go right now. Maybe I'm a little, once bit, twice shy, but I'm gonna go with a 6 right now. Maybe that will rise, maybe it won't.
I'd probably sit at around a 7, I would say. I want to run through and make sure that whole your deck burns out before I'm done playing is not an issue. It's possibly my character. It's possibly my play style. It could be too many things for me to say, oh, that's broken. That's ridiculous.
Right.
So I need to go through that again and see if I can utilize that mechanism, which is a little weird, burning the card out of my deck. I'm not sure if I like that. Instead of just penalizing me a couple turns or something, and then it comes back. I gotta see if that jives with me in a couple of plays. And then my rating might go up.
Well, we'll be back with second impressions. Again, don't take this as a full review. This is just kind of, because we're going to have to play this a lot. And
there's a lot here.
We're playing so many other games, it will take a while for us to get through this campaign. But we'll come back and talk more about it later. So that's first impressions of Gloomhaven. Either way, I think we can all agree this is a very impressive project.
It really is.
Very much.
This is not a failure by any means. It may not be up to our standards, but this is, wow. Very
so far,
impressive.
this is very, very impressive, yes.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, until next time, I'm Tom Vasel.
Zee Garcia, thank you.
Sam Healey. See you on the flip side, y'all.
Thanks for watching our review today. For more information about board games, as well as the #1 board game audio podcast, check out Dicetower.com for reviews, interviews, and more. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.